Welcome to the Popcorn Junkies.
Hooray! Hello!
Here we are, doing it by distance, by Skype and everything else, but we're reviewing Spider-Man No Way Home. So yes, Spider-Man. This is the new Spider-Man movie starring Tom Holland and Zendaya. It's the third outing, I think, for Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Are you a Spider-Man fan?
Yes.
In terms of superheroes, when you were younger in your adulthood, do you remember Spider-Man? Spider-Man?
Yeah, I do.
Spider-Man.
I've always liked him because I've always liked Spider-Man.
Right.
And I've liked each of the incarnations of Spider-Man.
Ooh. Well, the film starts immediately after the moment where he's essentially killed Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal in the last film. It's almost like the world splits into two camps, one that supports him and the other that is incredibly anti him.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in that sense, I thought it was quite good in the way it sort of dealt with cancel culture and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So he trots off to Doctor Strange, which is quite significant because...
It's very significant.
Well, it is significant not just to the plot, but in terms of... I don't know if you're aware of this Sony versus Marvel distinction in terms of the producing of these films.
Yes, a little bit.
So there was usually, clear distinction between the two. And the fact that Benedict Cumberbatch was in there as Doctor Strange suggests that they're really collapsing the two set of characters from both studios into each other. But anyway, so he goes to Doctor Strange, what did you think of Benedict Cumberbatch?
I loved him.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
A bit mannered, but if you can't be mannered when you're being Doctor Strange, I don't know when you can.
When you're a wizard or a magician or whatever, So he goes to him and he essentially asks him to cast a spell that makes everyone, bar a couple of people, selected people, he wants everyone else to forget that he's Spider-Man so that he can live his life and get on with it.
But if he'd said it like that at the outset, he wouldn't have had a problem. But he didn't, did he? Cumberbatch has started to do his spell, and then he's putting all these codicils in it, and he's really pissing off Cumberbatch at that point.
Absolutely. And in a sense, it's Cumberbatch's inability to control these constant additions to the, can you make my girlfriend not be included? Oh, can you make my aunt not be included? Oh, could you make... And so he goes on and on and on. He basically fucks up Benedict Cumberbatch's spell, and then this almost causes a crack in the fabric of their universe.
Yes.
Into which all these other characters and villains and what have you pour and seep in from other multiverses.
Yeah. I loved where Cumberbatch was as well, like the ice, which had become an ice palace, hadn't it? 'Cause he basically had a leak. And just, I don't know whether now is the time to do this, but can I just put out a huge shout for Tom Holland himself? Because as I was watching, it's a long film.
2.5 hours.
Some bits of it I didn't understand, and he's so watchable. I think he's so watchable all the way through it. I believe him totally.
Yeah, I felt in this he was given more breadth to perform than I felt in his other Spider-Man films. I think he was great in the first one. I had a bit of a problem with the last Spider-Man film because I think Kiki summed it up. I think what's great about Spider-Man as a character is that he's always a teenager, and so what makes him an attractive superhero is that he's kind of perplexed by his skills and he's slightly naive in the way he thinks he can use them and all that kind of stuff. So he's meant to be a young adult, and I thought Tom Holland played that beautifully in the first film. I thought the second film got kind of bogged down, was a bit procedural and a bit too genre, and I felt this film was, you're right, was a return to not Tom Holland the young guy, but this was Tom Holland the adult. There was something very mature about his performance, I thought.
I liked his relationship with Zendaya, and she had quite a lot to say, didn't she?
Well, of course, they're a real life item, aren't they?
Are they?
Yeah, they're together in real life, And these other characters that slip in, and it's been much publicised, slip in from essentially the earlier films. You've got Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. What did you think of Willem Dafoe?
I thought he was fantastic. I mean, he as I was watching him, I thought he must be one of the few actors on the planet that doesn't need any makeup to look absolutely petrified.
Bonkers. I mean, his face was naturally Green Goblin-y.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're all called. You've got Sandman, you've got Lizard Man, you've got Lightning Man, Jamie Foxx.
Yeah. Now I sort of, when I got back and I looked up some things, because Jamie Foxx, he's the one that fell into the box of eels, isn't he?
Electric
eels.
Got
electrocuted. So, I thought that his part was quite...
I thought he was funny.
I did too.
I really liked him. I really liked him. I thought this was great. I mean, and I quite liked the way they resurrect. And of course, you've got Alfred Molina playing Dr. Octavius, or whatever his name is. So you've got all these former villains, and then they kind of humanise them, which I thought was odd. They're all in an apartment. Spider-Man wants to kind of help them. I found all that a bit confusing.
Why?
Well, I didn't understand why he wanted to help them all.
Because his choice was that he'd send them back and they'd die. and nobody could understand why he didn't just do it.
Yes.
But because of Meg, or whatever her name is, Auntie Doodah.
Yeah.
With great, isn't that a Star Trek line?
What?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, well, yeah, no, absolutely. So he became this sort of incredibly empathetic, supportive, almost a psychoanalytical Spider-Man, wanting to help each of these corrupted, villainous types to go back to their multiverse and live large and prosper.
Well, yes, but I don't think he even thought that. It's just that he didn't want it on his conscience them dying.
Yeah. I think all of those characters coming back into this incarnation of Spider-Man. I think what's happened with superhero films is that they were very dry in the past, and they were very literal, and they were sort of slavishly attached to their source material. What I think was nice about this was they allowed a couple of those villains from the past to spread their wings and become a bit more, because there's a lot of humor in modern superhero films. It's a vital ingredient. Ever since Guardians of the Galaxy, I think the comedy quota has gone through the roof, really. I thought they spent quite a bit of time on the relationship between Zendaya and Tom Holland.
I thought they were great, and being as which we all said, the last thing we saw Zendaya in, she didn't say a word. It was nice to see her acting. Sorry, I love the third character, the Chinese guy.
Oh, yeah, the boy, his friend. The big thing about this film, and this is the bit that everyone's most excited about, is what comes with these villains in this multiverse are the two previous incarnations of Spidey in the form of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire.
I love that.
Did you?
But you see, this is why I thought by this point I was starting to know what was happening, and it was all to do with the multiverse. Multiverse.
Yeah, the multiverse.
What I liked about that scene as well was you got there. Like, you got Tobey Maguire, who is the maturer one. I love the fact that some of the things, like some of his powers he had powers that the new ones didn't have, and all of that. I mean, that was so funny, I thought. And Garfield's very much somebody who's got no self-confidence, and he needs talking up. I love that.
For me, I thought it was the best point in the film. I thought the film really became something very different. And I thought the film did a really good job of making coherent, as you've just proved, what a multiverse is. Because I think there's the danger with all this multiverse stuff that you think, this is just a narrative get out of jail card where you can just have anything happen. But I believed it in this, just like I believed it in the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse animation. It's the same concept, isn't it? So I thought Andrew Garfield was so funny and so sweet. I thought Tobey Maguire was just charming, because obviously he's the oldest incarnation. You're right, I love their discussions with Tobey Maguire when they said, what do you mean it comes out of your actual skin? I personally thought, when they were all three together, I thought this is a really novel, innovative way for Spider-Man to move forward. I thought the next film, part of me hopes and wishes that the next film was all three of them moving on.
But it won't be, will it? Because they've got other things to do. I mean, wasn't there
they've got other multiverses to go back to.
Wasn't there a lot of controversy? I mean, Andrew Garfield, didn't he hold out till the end that he wasn't in it?
Absolutely. I do think the multiverse allows Marvel to kind of go everywhere and keep all characters alive, really. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And have their cake and eat it.
What did you think of the death of Auntie May, though, or whatever?
That was moving. It was striking. And I think Tom Holland was acting his socks off around all of that.
Yeah, I do.
And what did you think of the Green Goblin? The Green Goblin clearly had a sort of schizophrenic issue, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And
what a surprise.
Yeah, but what I like about that is so many times when you interrogate superheroes, there's always a mental health issue at the back of them.
Yes,
or a scientific experiment that's kind of gone wrong. So the story moves on, and there's that natural heartache when he actually in the end says, yes, make everyone not know me. And then you've got that frustrating moment at the end, which I thought was a very powerful scene right at the end of him in the coffee shop. I thought that was very intense. It was surprisingly intense. Yes,
I thought they played it really well. And she was very good then with her looks and everything. You really felt that they would get together at some point.
Yeah.
I watched the Venom extra bit, but I never get Venom. I just don't know who the hell Venom is.
It was a curious scene because, of course, Tom Hardy was clearly off his tits, wasn't he?
He was funny, wasn't he?
He was very good. He was very good. But I was struggling where to position that in terms of, he was obviously, it was becoming one of his new stories as a journalist, wasn't it? So I think the suggestion and the big desire on this Sony side of the Marvel Universe is that Venom and Spider-Man come together. So I think that's what we're going to see in the next film.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, well, sum up and score. What would you give it?
I mean, I was completely at sea to begin with, but then they did explain it to me.
Yeah.
I do think Tom Holland is an absolute joy because it's difficult to keep that expression of just pure wonderment and niceness on your face all the way through it. Yeah. And he does. I mean, one genuinely roots for him, doesn't one? And wants him to, do well and everything.
He's perfect casting for Spider-Man.
Perfect, yeah. And I did keep thinking that. I kept thinking, especially when the two older ones came back, I was thinking, how can they sort of get any better than him, really? Jamie Foxx was good, but I also liked the Sandman, although I don't know where he comes from, but I liked him. And
Alfred Molina was good.
And Lizard, and all of that. And no, I thought this was honestly, Mark, I came out and I was waiting for the credits to go up, and they kill me because these long films, and then you've got to wait so long afterwards to get the. And but I absolutely thought this is the quintessential idea of what filmic entertainment is. I had so enjoyed myself.
Oh, good.
I'd so sort of been invested from beginning to end. And what they'd given me was masses of stunts and acting, and I thought all the fights were very good.
Yeah.
I like the whole fact that Spider-Man essentially can't do everything because of he hasn't got superpowers. He has to stick within his limits.
Yeah, he's quite limited.
I like all of that. So I really, really liked it, and I'm going to give it a very high mark.
Ooh.
I'm going to give it 97.8.
Wow. Only 2.2 away from 100. If I'm really honest, I thought it could have been trimmed by about 15 minutes. I thought it was a touch too long, which always lets something down. But I thought I like the character development. I really buy into Tom Holland. I thought this did a good job of returning us to what was going on in the Spider-Man before, the one with Mysterio. I like the dilemma of being known or being forgotten by everyone who knows you, because it's one of those things, I think, in idle moments on tubes when we're not looking at our phones, we go, God, what would it be like if everyone who knew me didn't know me anymore? So
exactly.
I think it toyed with that sort of thing. I thought it did a spectacular job of making the multiverse concept. It really kicked it to the back of the net, made it very comprehensible and believable within the terms of a superhero film. Even right down to Doctor Strange trying to keep the tear in the universe, in the sky, pulling it back together. You could see the shadows of more people wanting to come through, in a sense. I liked all of that.
Which was quite scary, I thought. It is
quite scary. I thought the CGI was great. I thought, in the trailer I was a bit concerned that it was going to be a bit artificial, but I thought all that was good. I think I could have done with a bit more of an obvious enemy. I mean, in a sense, if you think most of the villains in this were kind of softened at the edges because you kind of cared about them all. And the Green Goblin was clearly the most villainous.
Psychotic,
and also killed his auntie. But in a sense, he wasn't in it that much to be that much of a villain.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
That's true.
So I just wonder whether, it's a huge tribute to the film that it essentially sort of moved along for 2.5 hours without a massive, obvious villain, other than really the predicament that he was in. And I think that perhaps was what the film was about, was his predicament.
I think they could have taken something away from Benedict and given it towards the villain a bit more.
Yeah, maybe. I think so. And in terms of the two other Spider-Men, I think that just at the point where it was sagging, they completely pumped them in just at the beginning of the final act. And although I would, at the end I was thinking, it would be nice to have them. If they hadn't entered at that point, or if they'd entered earlier, we would have hit a sag and there would have been nothing to pull us up. You're right, maybe having them together in any other project would ruin the sort of specialness of that in this film. But I thought they worked so spectacularly well together. And you're right, it was, I was in the cinema late at night. I'd gone to see it late last night. I came out at sort of 11:15, which is why I didn't hang around for the second short clip at the end. I think I'd give it, for what it is as a superhero film, I'm not far from you. I think I'd give it 95, but I did feel it was a tad too long. Long. And I think it did suffer a little bit from the fact that we didn't have, a more villainous villain, or that we didn't get perhaps a bit more of Green Goblin. We could have easily made him the main villain. And I know they did, but it just didn't, I didn't feel him enough in it.
No, I mean, and sort of they made him doing that huge sort of dreadful thing of killing Aunt May, or whatever. And but then we still didn't feel we really knew him, did we?
No, exactly.
But
apart from the weird scene of him sat at the table in the background nicking bread or apples.
But also, I mean, I just can't get over his face. I could look at Willem Dafoe's face forever.
Fascinating face, isn't it?
Yeah,
well, there we go. So 95 from me, 97.8 from Nan. Tell us what you think. Did you enjoy it? Are you going to go and see it? Well, I hope you haven't watched this before seeing it, because we've just done a huge spoiler review.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.